Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Here I am in the studio with our dear guest, a familiar face, Sayyid Mohammed Hassan Alsheraa. Assalamu alaikum, my dear Sayyid. How are you?
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, Haji Mehdi, my dear
You have
brother.
brought your Noor again to
I'm so
this
happy
humble
to
studio.
thank you so much. Those are exaggerations of highest proportions, but I will accept them regardless. Thank you so much.
Said to him, it's an honor to have you here,
The honor is
as
mine.
usual. Um, our dear Sayyid, let's jump right into the juice.
Let's do it.
Tonight's episode is talking about liberalism and the challenges that it poses towards Muslims living in the West. Very long topic, but I'll just break it down into some core ideas. مثلا homosexuality, gender identity, feminism to an extent as well. These are some Western liberal ideas that have been kind of imported or imposed upon the Muslim mind and the Muslim family, Muslim communities here in North America, in the West, in Europe, wherever, Australia. And its tentacles have reached back home as well
Yeah.
in the Middle East.
No, you're right.
So first off, I wanted to ask you, how do you, as a scholar, a community leader, someone who visits many communities throughout North America, how do you approach these kind of sensitive topics when I'm sure you're invited? They tell you, Maulana, can you come and talk about this? We have XYZ problem in the community.
Yeah.
There's a gay community member.
Yeah.
There is, someone who says they have two dads.
Right.
This kind of thing. Or someone who feels that
Yeah.
they are a sister. They want to wear hijab now. They're a
Okay.
young Muslim boy. How do you approach these issues? How do you suggest that other community leaders? I'm sure this is a widespread issue, not only in Toronto but across Western Muslim societies.
Right.
How would you suggest that people approach this kind of topic?
Essentially, this is a very critical discussion because the idea of liberalism is to suggest that you are liberated, liberal, and from the shackles of society, cultural norms, psychosocial norms, religious restrictions, and whatever else in between. So, as a result, you want to be free. And so, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is a model within the United States of America. And the key there is pursuit of happiness is a contingency of being liberated. And to be liberated has been construed as an idea of do whatever you wish, that so long as number one you're happy, and as well as there is no harm or corruption to some extent, because you can be happy but smoke, and you can be happy if that is the result of what it takes to be happy, so to a certain extent, but there's no abuse of power. And there's a statement in Arabic, أنت حر ما لا تضر. You're free so long as you don't harm others. This concept has been generated throughout the years and has evolved, and it's become an idea whereby if I don't understand my world, my place in the world, then to let go of some of the shackles that I don't really comprehend, I don't understand, that are confusing. Hijab, for example, practices, beliefs, notions, organized religions, dogma, morality, ethics. These things are holding me back at the end of the day. So why on earth am I believing in something that I can't understand? So it became a thing that, genuinely I was being persecuted. And many people came to the Western world because they're like, listen, I'm not getting freedom at home and I have to find pastures new. And even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala acknowledges this concept where, listen, if you're persecuted, go. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alam takun ardullahi wasi'atan fatuhajiru fiha. If your restrictions are high and your happiness is low, alam takun ardullah. Go travel, go leave. And so many people will say that these parts of the world, this part, North America, Canada, was founded based on these values. And that's a beautiful thing. Leave, get out of there. Our families, your family, you, others, We had to leave, a dictator that was being savage and being barbaric. Why? Because our life, our liberty, and our pursuit of happiness was restricted. It has then culminated today of, well, if I don't understand something, then I need to be liberated from it. So now there's a dichotomy between I am restricted by something, I need to be liberated, to now I don't understand it, I have to be liberated by it. Hijab goes flying. Akhlaq goes flying. Morale goes flying. Common sense goes flying. Intuition goes flying. And it's like, what'd you leave? Whatever makes me happy. Yeah, akhi, just because it makes you happy doesn't mean it's in your best interest, in the interest of others. Two dads is not healthy for the nuclear family. That kid's going to be confused. You can call me transphobic, homophobic. I call myself a scientist. The data clearly shows that the nuclear family is the most optimal. You want to go against science? What is a woman? These are questions that are now very high. And you know who's not exempt from these confusions? The Muslim community. So it's high time we address these. You asked how, when I'm asked, how do I address this? Alhamdulillah, I've been honored to go all across the United States. I've been to almost all the states. It's tawfiq from Allah that we have communities everywhere. Even in Juneau, Alaska. There's a city in Alaska called Haidar, by the way. Haidar, Alaska. It's an Iraqi
Okay.
community, and the city is called Haidar. And so let that be something that gives reassurance. But, anyways, these issues exist everywhere. And this issue exists in Africa. It exists in Europe and it exists in the UK. And these are my personal examples. And they now exist in the Middle East. Just look at the social media. When you look at these, it's not something that's acknowledged. I noticed is not acknowledged because people kind of brush it under the rug. And so it's an issue that is not brought to attention. You notice it, but people don't ask. So no one's going to come and say, my son has a boyfriend. It's almost a shame factor that I had to now complain to you about my own son. And so this issue particularly, I'm noticing there's not discussion on it. It could be culturally as well. It's
Kind
not
of
something we
sweep
talk
it under
about.
the rug.
Yeah, it's not something you talk about on the minbar. It's not something you bring about, And I would say no, there's a place for this. Maybe even on the minbar, or maybe even in a seminar manner. There are doctors that we invite here who do seminars, and these seminars are effective. And because in the seminar, it's more engaging, it's more interactive. And this allows people to speak. But who wants to talk about this issue that concerns them, particularly? In our household, this is what we have.
It's a taboo.
It's hard to talk, and I don't blame them. I understand, but at the end of the day, you're gonna be questioned. You know, was there complacency on my part? School, Haj Mehdi, there are people that send their kids. I know a friend in Albany, New York, may Allah bless him. He sends his kids to a Christian school where they have a dress code, where they wear modest, where the sisters have dresses, where the brothers almost wear suits and vests, and they study and they don't get taught brainwashing liberalism that takes them out of the folds of decency. And they do give them some lessons about Jesus in the narrative from the Bible's perspective. When they get home, they just ask son, daughter, what was today's topic about? What did you learn? He's like, we learned this and that. But we also were talking about Jesus. And so we just critique the one odd fact about Christ that they said that wasn't in line with Islam. Everything else we're happy. Whereas when we go to school today in the public system, it's in biology. Forget religious studies. Even if that's not even, it's not even a topic that's discussed any longer. Biology, in English, in basic education, I think you find these things being discussed and being embraced. I said, discuss them. Why embrace them? Your job is not to endorse one side versus the other. Your job is to teach, educate. But it's like, I don't want to send my kids to these schools anymore. I'd rather send them to Christian, Catholic practicing schools because at the end of the day, there's a lot of decency. I would say do that. I would honestly do that. If private schools, Islamic schools are not an option, if, for example, tutoring, homeschooling is not effective, then Allah will ask you about your family. There are responsibility. So there are so many ways, so many concerns to go about this. But my observation is that they're not discussed for the cultural reasons, for the confusion, for the shame, and for the denial. For the people are just in denial. No, my kid's good. It's just a phase or whatever. Yeah, that phase is gonna help him in the long run, unfortunately.
What do you think is the goal of like this whole hamla, this whole kind of campaign
Yeah.
against the nuclear family? Like
Wallah.
you see, like in a lot of modern media now, even there's Muslim. They'll show like hijabi wearing woman, but she has feelings for a female friend.
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah,
they're trying to like slowly creep this in and normalize it to a degree.
yeah,
What is the end goal here?
yeah.
Like,
That
and
yeah.
how do we like fight against that? A lot of people say it's time for hijrah back,
Oh,
but
it's
that's
good.
not realistic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's a
yeah,
whole other conversation about whether, you know, it's time for the hijrah back. What are the requirements for that? But
yeah, yeah.
like, what is the end goal of what is your theory or idea about the end goal of, you know, this kind of liberal ideology?
I think it's godlessness. I think there's a demonic, and I'm saying it like a conspiracy theorist would say it. There's a satanic entity to this where, if you notice, all that was once moral and firm with foundations and a template of ethics has now become questioned. I think when you discuss things like the nuclear family in peril, God is not being central. So long as you're happy, do what you like. Ancestral rights are being campaigned for in Scandinavia. Just look it up, because the essential principles are underlining. You know, if I'm not abusing someone as far as consent goes, and we're both happy, what's the deal if a dad and a son and a mom and a son and a brother and a sister? What's the deal with that? I would agree with you if you remove the variable of God. It's bad because God said so. Biologically speaking, it's not effective, but families can come together and not have an interest with expanding and reproductive purposes. So at that point, who's telling you something's objectively evil and wrong? I think on the switch side, there's someone telling you that it's objectively evil and wrong if you're not happy. And I think that's shaitan. And shaitan's working really good. I think the devil is behind all of these things. And the devil misguides people with efforts. And I think the point of hijrah is an interesting one because hijrah in general is a good thing if you go and you can safeguard your family, your life, your interests. Ta'arrub ba'd al-hijrah is haram, where you go somewhere where you can't practice your faith, your values, your beliefs. In France, if a practicing woman wants to go and work, she's not allowed to wear her hijab. That would be ta'arrub ba'd al-hijrah. Our maraja said that would be haram to do, if that would jeopardize your faith. So, but let's just be honest, Habibi. And if you, what, in the Middle East, is that safe now? Are
No.
these ideologies and practices and views and the culture that has crept? I mean, you go to Iraq and you see what they're into, and I see what they're into in Karbala and Najaf. Najaf is the most pure place on earth after Medina al Munawwara. But there are youth that are confused. They're just confused. Why? Because they have social media, and the social media gives them access to what's going on in San Diego. And my man's chilling in Karrada, Baghdad. Well, the person's hanging out in Nasriya, Suq al-Shuyukh. The guy's hanging in Gurna, Basra. And he's like, oh, that's what life is like. Why am I restricted here? I want to be liberated. Hijab goes flying, as we said earlier.
Mhm.
Morals goes out the window. It doesn't even go out the door. It goes out the window. Because it goes out the door like Lawadim. It goes out the window like someone who has nothing better to do. So hijrah is good. But why hijrah back to the Middle East? Hijrah to the next town next door where it's a safer town, a town that has people that are like-minded. Yeah, these are things is it's hard to say there's a one-liner for them that can address all these issues. It's
Mhm.
case by case. And that guy in Albany that I mentioned, in his case is like I can't safeguard my daughters. He's from Kabul, Afghanistan. Well, you don't move back to Afghanistan? I think it might be more complicated there for the education purposes for his daughters. I'll send them to a Catholic school. That's his potential taklif, possibly obligation. In Michigan, alhamdulillah, we appear to have some control over this issue. There's a general consensus. There's a consciousness that, hey, guys, these things are disgusting. And it's not disgusting from the angle of discrimination or I'm throwing a pejorative at a type of community. I just don't believe you're a community. The homosexual group is not a community. Your activity in the bedroom is not something that should denote the kind of group you are. That's not a community. Otherwise, I'm not a community. The heterosexual group is not a community. Just you do what you want to do. And in Islam, we recognize the fact that at the end of the day, there are practices that are wrong and there are urges that exist. However, if they are to be manifested, that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question an individual. If someone is gay, are they doomed to hellfire? Well, we need to open the pages of Islamic literature. And I believe Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt spoke about this. And they said the act is an act that is not in line with what God desires. Easy. But everything that we do that is not in line with what God desires is also a sin. So, what distinguishes this one? What distinguishes homosexuality is if the feeling of being homosexual is not manifested and is acknowledged to be a setback and not productive in your life, and that eventually you will get out of this, you're not sinning. There's no sin. It's an urge. It's your jihad in nafs. It's your urges. I mean, we all have urges where sometimes you want to kill someone because you were angry, but you have to hold back. You can't just act upon every urge. You get into arguments, you get into fits, you want to steal, you're like, that would be I could get away with this. It's an urge. I will enclose it, I won't let it manifest. This is also, yes, you're predisposed, but how are you predisposed? Is there such a thing as a gay gene? No. You're predisposed and you grow up in a society. It's the whole discussion of nature versus nurture.
Yeah, like a lot of people, some people say, "Oh, I was born this way."
No, you were born in a world where people told you this is appropriate. As a result, you embraced it. Now, you might have predispositions where you're into feminine things as a man or you're into masculine things as a girl, but you don't grow up as a child saying, I know what I am. If as a child you question the fact that the tooth fairy exists or not, or Santa exists or not. So then how are you coming up with conviction and saying that, no, 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 this is who I am? Akhi, wake up and smell the coffee. This is a child. They can't make decisions for themselves. They have to wait until they're 18 to marry. They have to wait until they're 21 in the United States to drink. Now, but we're going to give them the right when they're 8 to make a decision about their gender, which constitutes the rest of their life in a particular manner. And a doctor has to give them medicine to chemically castrate them because they felt like it. Why are we giving them that much power, man? Free the kids. Hashtag free the kids from the shackles of shaitan. This is preposterous, bro. This is disgusting. What's
Yeah.
going on? We gave them that right all of a sudden. Akhi, they have rights, but they can't consent to stuff like that. These are children. And so what happens at the end of the day? Society pressures them. They say, hey, for example, it's normal. Cartoons. Yeah, akhi, Disney cartoons used to be so nice. Used to be so realistic. Used to
So
be
family oriented.
used to be so focused on, the role of the dad, the role of the mom. Yeah, they're very traditional. Yeah, they had their setbacks because they were in like what the 1950s and 40s, so those circumstances. But why does like this Disney princess have to dress so provocatively, frivolously? Why is she chasing that man? Why are the Disney princesses now in love with the same gender? What is going on? This is preposterous. This is what confuses people. Some are saying, "Listen, you just don't understand love." I guess I don't. I guess I don't. This is found in nature. I guess a penguin can dictate your methods of morale at that point. If a penguin decides to be with a guy, oh, now monkey see, monkey do, literally speaking. فلا, Allah has honored the children of Adam with an aql, with the reason. And hikmah, wisdom dictates that you can't act upon your urges. But if someone has the urge and someone says, I know God doesn't want this, there are success stories. There are. There are cases in like the Muslim Vibe. They've done a report about a brother who said, look, I felt like this was me. And I was never attracted to the opposite gender. But I suppressed it, knowing that, listen, I'm Muslim. I can't act upon all urges. And I'll get out of it. And this was my jihad in nafs. Allah rewards him double because he's struggling with something. And eventually got married and now he has kids. Happy wife, happy life. And he's moving on. He's like, I'm an example. Look up the Muslim Vibe. My brother Salim, he did the interview and it was a very effective one. It showcases that there is an alternative. It's not a matter of I was born into the wrong body. When did you know that? When I was 6. Now, good job. And you still thought that you were a dinosaur at the same time. 6-year-olds don't come up with these decisions. They can think about this, but this decision is one that has to be predicated on number one, logic, number two, science, and number three, ethics. And so, because you can't deny logic, 1 + 1 = 2. You were born with the type of chromosomes you're with. You can't deny science, there's the evidence. And you can't deny ethics. This is ineffective in the long run, in the short run, and in the grand scheme of things.
Santum. Now you did bring up the topic of transgenderism
Yeah,
and how it is related to, of course, this whole gender identity
yeah.
topic. Um, and a lot of the root cause is, a lot of the content that is being pushed out to them. But I just want to ask, because we mentioned it, isn't transgenderism of some form becoming
Hmm.
like doing the what do they call it? The transition?
Okay.
Isn't that allowed in Iran?
يعني medically transitioning from one gender to another gender.
Yeah. Is
That.
from what I've heard is that it is allowed in Iran under certain circumstances. I don't know. I'm not fully aware of the situation.
I would have to, because the ulama have spoken on this
Yeah.
one. So I would have to grab the statement by the ulama on this one before I speak.
Yeah, yeah,
So
of
I have,
course.
and so pardon in real time the discussion that's happening right
Yeah,
now.
as long as you
But
just put the mic a bit closer. Yeah.
yeah, essentially this is the case
Yeah.
to a certain degree. Um, and Here it is. So when we say in Iran that this practice is happening, is transgenderism happening or is corrective gender surgery happening? That is to say, the original gender, which is being obscured by imperfections potentially or by um, features,
A birth defect of
a
some kind.
defect of a manner, a defect of a matter which inhibits one to fully realize that they are X or B. So here's the fatwa on this one. Samahat al-Sayyid Ali al-Khamenei says, in regards to his opinion on تغيير الجنس, changing of one's gender, he says that clearly. When they're asking him the question, هناك أشخاص ظاهرهم الذكورية إلا أنهم يمتلكون بعض خصائص الأنوثة من الناحية النفسية ولديهم ميول جنسية أنثوية كاملة، فلو لم يبادروا إلى تغيير جنسهم وقعوا في الفساد، فهل يجوز معالجتهم من خلال إجراء عملية جراحية؟ There are people, their exterior appears to be masculine. However, they have desires and they have the urges that are feminine from a mental point of view and a psychological one as well. And they have the urge that a woman would have as well in order to fully embrace their feminine nature, but their exterior is masculine. Are they able to take on surgical operations in order that they can prevent themselves from falling in corruption? So, is this allowed or not? Sayyid Ali al-Khamenei says, لا بأس في العملية الجراحية المذكورة. There is no harm in having cosmetic surgery or surgical operations that you have mentioned and in regards to this particular case. فيما, in the case إذا كانت لكشف وإظهار الجنسية الواقعية, for purposes of getting the true gender more apparent. So it's not I'm changing my gender to another. It's this surgery serves the purpose of making the real gender, he says it quite clearly, لكشف, to reveal, وإظهار, to show, الجنسية, the gender, الواقعية, that is the real gender. شريطة أن لا تستلزم فعل محرم ولا تسبب ترتب مفسدة, with the condition that this will not contribute to any acts of impermissibility or corruption. So there's a misconception, we have to be fair as Muslims. Whether you embrace a certain worldview or not, that in Islam, none of our ulama, categorically, none of them have allowed transgenderism in so much as that a person can become a male after being female and vice versa. Rather, there are operations that are allowed from a fiqh and jurisprudential point of view to make apparent the actual gender. There are defects. There are, I guess, certain, one might imagine someone with features that are more feminine than others on a man, features that are masculine on a woman. Can we do cosmetic corrective surgery to address this? Ulama have said yes. So, no, this doesn't exist whereby a Muslim can just change their gender based on their mood, but rather based on I have a purpose to show the real gender that I was born with, XY chromosome or XX chromosomes.
Accentum.
So that is a concern that is raised, and some people don't know the nuances to that. And from the non-Shia school and worldview, they say, "Oh, look, in the Shia practice, what you guys are allowed, the biggest Shia
Yeah.
country has this." No, it's not the case. There are places and facilities that address this as a corrective surgery kind of operation, rather than your Caitlyn Jenner sort of phase of being a, a woman after being a man. So we have to be objective at the end of the day in this regard.
Accentum. Yeah. So there are, of course, rules and restrictions, and it's a very specific scenario when the person actually, I believe, their chromosomes do not match up with what their body
Mm.
actually has in terms of physical features.
Yeah.
So it's not the same. Like you said, it's not based on mood.
And in Islam, cosmetic surgery is allowed. It's not haram for someone to,
Is that the case for
aesthetically
all
speaking.
all Muslims? They're
In
or,
Islam, Ahl al-Bayt, cosmetic
yeah,
surgery is allowed, granted that once you do something that is considered beautification or zina, as a woman, this would not be something a non-relative man can see. So it's not haram that a lady gets surgery to do features and add and adjust and move. This is her choice. Granted, of many conditions though, that obviously the operator is another lady. A man can't operate unless this is something that is necessary. Otherwise, that is a surgery that is to address a health, a birth defect, a scare, a concern, a risk. And that in that case, there are exceptions that are made if your life is on the line. However, if there is an alternative, you have to take the alternative. If it's a female, for example. Secondly, this is only for the men in her life from the nuclear family, i.e., her husband, can see, or those who are allowed to see from the family that can view her without her own hijab on from the very beginning. So, cosmetic surgery. So, in this discussion, can cosmetic surgery be allowed to just optimize the appearance of one's gender, for example, if they feel like they have features that are more commonly associated with the other gender? Yes, you can. To the public world, this came about as what? This came about as transgenderism is allowed. You cannot transition your gender. You can only optimize the current one you have if you feel that there are defects. That's the whole discussion. But people are quick to judge Shia hatred, Shia phobia, confusion, misunderstandings, political reasons, and so on and so forth. But this is a discussion, and these are real people, and they exist. What can you do in this case? There is a solution provided, and that's the summary of it.
Accentum. Now I just wanted to now introduce this other idea, which is a
Sure.
scenario.
Okay.
Our As you know, we had in Shahr Ramadan and Mubarak, the first half, Dr. Ali Al-Hilli, he was
Yes,
here.
yeah. We were here doing Shahr Ramadan as well, the center next door. Shout out to the Afghan Youth Committee. And
Yeah.
we had the honor of seeing yourself and the other brothers here.
Yeah, I think we also had the honor of recording a podcast in Shahr Ramadan
That is set to be released right now, which is, I believe, in
sometime in May.
sometime in May. Interesting.
Yeah, we're breaking the fourth wall of it.
Okay.
But as you know, Dr. Ali has really, he switched things up for us. He brought these PowerPoint presentations or whatever, and he likes to push these taboo topics in seminar
Why
format
not?
that you mentioned.
Why not, man?
And one of the scenarios that he presented, I don't have it written in front of me, but from what I can recall, is your, child comes to you, um, and he tells you that his friend has two dads, and I believe it's either he wants to go over to their house or the friend's parents, will they want to come over,
Okay.
and meet you. How do you approach that situation dealing with your own child who's young? Um,
Okay.
there's another child involved, and then the parents that are, a homosexual couple.
Okay.
As a parent, and you have a child, how do you approach that situation? It's difficult.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice
Yeah.
for those parents? I mean, neither of us are parents here, so inshallah, may Allah, grant us uh progeny. But I'm sure you've, with your experience dealing with families, dealing with communities, that you can offer some perspective on this.
Just say no. There's no need for your child to go to a house where they can become further confused. Just say no. I think I came out maybe decent, but I
Hmm.
was never allowed to go anywhere. I was not allowed to go to another person's house until my family knew who was in the house and knew everything about them. And I was not allowed to go to sleepovers. You can say, I know the dad of the house, but I don't know the siblings of the house. You know who the father is because I know the father. I'm comfortable having you go to their house and sleep. Yeah, but you don't know his son. You don't know his wife. You don't know his whatever. So you only know one person, and you can just say, I'm going to sleep and let my son
You
and
can't
daughter.
trust your
Can't do
child.
that.
Yeah.
Cannot do that. Let alone if you're sending your child to a house of, and I love our brothers and sisters. I even call them brothers and sisters from the Christian community, from any group, even if they're Hindu or Buddhist, if they're a decent human being, may Allah bless them to the path of Islam. But may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give light to those who provide good in this world. I will not send my kid to your house to sleep over, however. Why? There are spiritual ramifications. I cannot guarantee, for example, if the food will be food that will be healthy or Islamically allowed. I can't guarantee if the activity is healthy or Islamically allowed. I can't guarantee if the people are healthy or Islamically adept. This is not to say, for example, that they're Muslims. They don't need to be Muslims. But are they good people? For example, will they use profanity? If they're Muslims, I have to also investigate that. I don't care if you're just Muslim, you don't get the exempt card. Are you going to use language from my kid? What discussions are going to happen? I feel more comfortable sending them to family members, but even my own family, I will have to ask, listen, this is my child. I know him best. Don't bring up this topic. Don't bring up this issue. Don't talk about this thing you like to always talk about, for example. You have to monitor. Now, to skip all that and say, send him to a house that has two dads, two mommies. Why? Because his friend is their child. And no, it's not gonna happen. You have to be a responsible parent. You just have to. There are siblings in the home. You have to tell one sibling to avoid talking to the other. And they're brothers or they're sisters. Or that's his sister or that's her brother. And you have to say stop talking to each other. Why? Because right now both of you are going through a tantrum. Both of you are not seeing eye to eye. If this conversation continues, it becomes unhealthy. You go to your room, you go to your room. Is that being evil? No. That's just being responsible. So you want me to send them to someone else's house? I can't do that. That is not something wise. It'll add more confusion. It'll normalize. It'll desensitize your kid and seeing that this is normal. And yeah, you don't want to restrict your kid and isolate them from their friends. But if the only way to hang out is by going to their house and you can't be there with them, then that's a concern. You have to figure out ways to get them involved socially. Even kids that are homeschooled, they are they ought to go outside. They ought to have and hang around and chat and banter and joke around and play soccer. If you're gonna homeschool your kid, sign them up for soccer then, publicly. If you're gonna homeschool your kid, send them to the Sunday school masjid as well, so that at least they see other kids. It's healthy. These are critical years. These are formidable years that they need to have socialization going on. So in this context, if they're especially in their formidable, impressionable, naive, they're like Play-Doh. Imam Ali alayhi salam says the child's heart is like an uncultivated piece of land. Whatever you give to it, it'll just accept. So give that which you are happy it grows within. In this context, I'm not going to give them confusion. You can't do that. This is a
But what if
responsibility.
they come to you confused
Who's
now?
they?
You're the child.
And
They come to you confused. They're like, how come,
yeah, how come?
Timmy has two dads or two moms?
And how come
And how come I have a mom and a dad? How come he doesn't have one?
just be like God made it that way? God designed that in order to have a happy family, you might have to have a father and you might have to have a mother. And the father protects you, and the mother does as well. But the mom serves a role that the father cannot serve. A mom is the only one that can nurture her child in the most tender way possible, the most special way possible. That is not to say single fathers do a bad job, but the most optimal family is we said the nuclear one. And a bad mother would be one that has a kid and ignores them and goes out and hangs out with her friend. That's a bad mother. No matter who you are, and you can't say, but the dad will take care of him. You're special. You are special. You are an ingredient that will make this child fulfilled. To ignore them, you become a bad mom. A dad to not provide to his family is a bad dad and goes and provides to his leisure purposes only. But there are roles that one cannot fulfill. There's something very special about mother's love, mother's tenderness in those critical, formidable years that is so invaluable and irreplaceable. In this context, it's very challenging to find an alternative. So if there's two dads, typically in gay couples, you have one who'll take the role of a very female version, and the one will be the more masculine one. Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen is the man in the relationship. Her wife, Portia, is the female. In their wedding, she wore a suit. The other one wore a white wedding dress. Yeah, but I thought both of you are women. Yeah, but we still
They
acknowledge
still
there needs to be a man
they
in the
still fall
relationship.
into the same kind of
So
gender
there needs to
roles.
be so you
Yeah.
agree that gender roles need to exist. How ironic.
Yeah.
Gender roles need because in order to have a healthy family, you can't have two. You can be very similar to your own partner, your potential prospect. At the end of the day, you love someone because of the common denominators, but you can't be the other one. One serves a role, the other can't. Sometimes we say good cop, bad cop. If the mom talks, it doesn't work. She has to send the dad, for example. He's a bit more firm. This is normal. This is fine. But it's interesting how you notice that even in these relationships, it's almost like an unspoken rule. We kind of need to have the feminine element here now. So could you take on the female, even though both are females, and I'll take on the man. There's a way to fix this, where it's more utilitarian. It contributes to society. You can reproduce. You can become more optimally happy. You can maximize efficiency and effectiveness. You can stay in tune to the teachings of practices of humans for centuries and thousands of years. You're in line with faith and God centricism. And that is to say, I can have you as a best friend. I don't need to marry you at the end of the day. That's your friend. That's fine. But that's the perspective of Islam Ahlul Bayt, that there are gender roles. And I say, yeah, there are gender roles. I mean, at the end of the day, a mom's a mom, not a dad. It's her role to take care of the kid in these formidable years as much as the father is, but it needs to be balanced, as Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib would do so. Sayyidah Zahra, salawatullahi wa salamu alayha, would become fatigued. Ali ibn Abi Talib would sweep and he would cook. He didn't say that's the lady's role. That her role right now is to relax. She's overworked herself. I will step in. That's the true man. And they take turns in this situation. But she is the most optimal in raising her children because she's the mom that is unlike any other mom. And he's the dad that is unlike any other dad, such that Rasulullah calls Ali, Ya Ali, ana wa anta abawa hadhihi ummah. We're the dads of this ummah. And Fatima Zahra is like the mom of this ummah because she is ummi abiha. And if she's the mother of her own father, then she's the mother of this ummah in some extent as well. So this is the model example and template that we should have. And you can see the ironies in the alternatives that are there. This is what Islam set forth. And I say Islam, and I mean categorically Muslims, Sunnis, and Shias, all have, alhamdulillah, agreed this much far. That, hey, these positions, keep them the way they are as God intended. But we learn to tolerate. What can you do? We want to force something down someone's throat? You can't do that. You can't say, hey, you have to do it this way because my God said so. We live in the world. We live here by their permission. So we respect the fact that while we're here, we're going to tolerate, but tolerance doesn't mean acceptance. And by not accepting doesn't mean you go and you become abrasive or discriminatory. No. But at the end of the day, you have to set your own boundaries. As they will set boundaries. I don't like you going to a Muslim's house. Huh, I don't like my kid going to a kafir's house. We're going to have that discussion. It's not healthy. But I decide to raise my kids based on their values. The school system might have a different perspective. To them is their perspective, to me is mine. But I can back one with data that the other cannot. And they can back it with data, but it's data that is ineffective and it's not progressive. And the irony is they're all about progression and progressiveness. If you want progression, health is progression, sanity is progression, lack of depression in communities that attain a nuclear family and God centricism is quite obvious, as opposed to depression rates that spike in families that have a lot of confusion when the basic bare bone expectations are flipped over the place. Because the basic bare bone expectation is, I think biologically I'm supposed to have a father and a mother. How come that's not working out? Now, it's not the case that if it's a single mother or a single father, that's normal. What's not normal, the abnormality, and to come and justify by saying some penguin had a boyfriend, a girl penguin had a girlfriend, then you just dupe down to a level of animalism. And that's what differentiates humans from animals, is that they have morals and ethics and wisdom that animals don't. And that's where the insan can be beneath the animal sometimes if they don't even use their aql. Because what differentiates you from the animal kingdom? You do everything the animals do. Your aql, your reason. And so in
Following
this
your
case, may
desires.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all reason and guide us all, inshallah, especially in these turbulent times.
Ahsantum. Thank you. And we just mentioned briefly at the beginning of the episode that this is a taboo topic.
Yeah.
It is hard to talk about.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of the times it is swept under the rug rather than kind of, pouncing on the issue head on, um, whether it's within our communities and whatnot. However, it is a real issue. There are increasing numbers of people, whether they are, community leaders, just members of a community they attend, family members or relatives that, are, they may be homosexual, they may have some be on this kind of gender identity thing.
Have you seen anything like that?
Uh, I think I've made some silent observations, in the Toronto community as a whole, that there are some members that may be more
Are they
or
like closeted? Or are they open?
you see, it's hard to judge when
Yeah.
you look at someone, you're like, this brother's a bit weird, but
Yeah.
what are you supposed to say?
Weird is
That's the thing,
okay.
is how do you address it? Like if you see like something like this, someone that may be a closeted gay or
Mm.
someone who starts to become more feminine
Yeah.
or a woman that starts to be act more like a tomboy.
Yeah.
How are you as a community supposed to address this? Like this is actually a genuine
Yeah.
like fear I have. I don't know how to address this issue. Like you
Yeah.
said, we have to be tolerant. We can't just shun the person. We're not in the stone ages anymore. We have to be tolerant of another person. This is a human being at the end of the day.
صح. صح.
While they are committing a sin, that's
صح.
not up to me to, punish them. But how do you approach the issue?
Right.
Do you leave them unchecked? Do you say something?
This is an interesting one because it involves, but there's a person that is sinning. What, we just reject people because they sin? We're all sinners.
Yeah, it's just a question of how
We're
public we
sinners.
are with our sins.
We're all sinners.
Yeah.
So what if they're closeted? Do we not let them in? What if they're open? Do we let them in? First of all, do we even have the right to reject someone? It's Baytullah. It's not my bet. So the house of Allah. Do I reject someone? At the end of the day, do I also want to become front page on the newspaper, a discriminatory center that doesn't
Yeah.
allow people
That has a
who
whole other
different-
implication from the
exactly,
government.
Exactly. So it's like it's a slippery slope. I would say that if someone's coming to the masjid, if they're a foreign person, welcome them to the masjid. What brings you here? Are you a convert? Would you like to see? We can speak with you. Would you like to learn more? Are you? What's the deal here? Always welcome people that are foreign. That should be policy number one. Rule one: I don't see you ever. Come here. Let me talk. That's how are you? You might discover the fact that they are saying to them that, hey, my position is I just want to learn more. Then what do I say? Come, welcome. You want to learn more? Akhi, you could be a kafir. Just come inside. It's okay. Learn, watch us pray. We're nice.
Yeah.
The Muslim community is very cute. We drink tea and we eat dates and we listen to and we cry and we read poetry. We don't do anything else behind that. It's like, did you think we're gonna like a training camp for some violence or something like that? Is that what you're here for? I know, we're actually pretty cute. We eat
Yeah.
sambusas and whatever.
Sabusa. Some people with nice voices grab the mic.
Some sing in the Quran. And we clap sometimes.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's
that's
really
something
adorable.
We pray together.
That we
Yeah.
pray. What else do you want us to do? What did you expect? We can really throw down with the latam,
Oh, yeah, for
so
sure.
we can do that as well.
Shout out my Shia brothers.
Especially if you're like from night 7 until the 10th of Muharram, then you come there, then you, yeah.
It's a whole other story.
Yeah. So in this context, if they're foreign, welcome them. If they're gay, what do you kick them out?
Afwan bin Kalamkum, I heard a story of one of the centers in Michigan,
Yeah.
where they had a
Yeah.
trans
Yeah.
man, like a
I don't know.
it was a man that was dressing up as a woman.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
she was he was a convert,
Yes.
and he started wearing abaya
Yes.
and coming.
Some wear abaya better than some sisters, by the way.
MashaAllah. So
No,
it's funny. There's actually an
no, no, no,
account.
no, no حول ولا قوة إلا بالله.
لا حول ولا قوة
That
إلا
that
بالله.
state of affairs was
There's
extremely.
actually an Instagram account of some German guy that's dressing up. It's like popping off right now on
Yeah,
Instagram. It's a
sadly.
German guy that's dressing up as a woman. But then they're getting grilled in the comments, and they just say, "I'm not a Muslim. I just like wearing hijab."
God dang it, man. Like, God, we failed. We
But
failed, bro.
yeah, it's ridiculous. But this guy or
Non-Muslim
girl,
dressing up in
this
hijab
person
better
that's showing
than
up at that center,
La
I
ilaha
heard that they just
illallah.
left them for a while. They would have them pray, but then it becomes a problem, like Jama'ah Salah.
So yeah, we had this issue. So I was there for this concern. And
Perfect.
yeah, perfect, right? Call me. But I happened to be there. I was teaching a class, and yeah, it was a dude who dressed in a purple hijab and everything, and makeup and things like
Purple.
that.
Wow.
So it's okay. It's whatever. I don't care. You know, just ahlan wa sahlan, come through. But you're coming to the center and you're going to join us in prayer. I'm sorry, you can't sit next to the women and shake their hands. Taqabbalallah, taqabbalallah, and the occasional kiss on the cheek. Your real name is Kevin, and your voice is like 5 octaves lower than any other sister near you. And you introduce yourself as Tamara. That can't happen, Habibi. And this poor lady is like, "You're a strange sister. I've never seen you before." Ahlan wa sahlan. But then it's like, all right, if you're not comfortable, I'll pray next to the man. But now the man is like, "Is that a sister praying next to me with hijab?" So then they started praying between the sisters and the men in the middle.
Mm.
They created their own space. And so
The
no one would
gray
shake their
area.
hand. Yeah. I feel that they felt that, there was no place for them. We're not going to recognize this. We'll recognize you, but not this. You are recognized. At the end of the day, the masjid is the place to come to correct yourself. If you have an issue with hypocrisy, the best doctor is Imam al-Hussein. You have an issue with jealousy, envy, the best medical institution is Ahl al-Kisa. That's the best place to come and fix your issues. And if someone says, "Look, I know this is wrong, I just want to see the light," I welcome you. Come through. We can talk, we can discuss, we can learn, but that doesn't mean you can infringe on others. And in this context, yeah, women were felt violated. This whole time I was hugging and kissing and shaking hands with a guy. I felt dirty. These are women who haven't touched a man in their entire life, only their family members. And like this was horrible. I felt I was violated, whatever. At the end of the day, you can't infringe on others. But at the same time, you don't want to infringe on the rights of those who say, "Look, give me a chance." So we give people chances. But you can't just say, "Accept me for who I am and whatever I am and whenever I am."
And you have to do.
And
You
whether
have
you,
to
whether
accept.
you like it or not. La
Yeah.
habibi, that doesn't work. If you come here, you have policies to maintain, and those policies involve modesty and respecting others and their space. And in this context, we welcome people. Come inside the masjid. You're more than welcomed. We invite you for purposes of growth, learning, genuinity. You're a convert as well. I mean, confusion exists. It's fine. Gender dysphoria is a real thing. It's not an issue. You can come. If you want to come and say, "Look, I want to learn more. What does my faith have to say about this thing?" But the thing is, I can't compel others to accept it, and whether they like it or not. And so after a while, they saw that there's no room for them in this kind of environment. We were welcoming, we were kind. We didn't say get out of here, but we said, "Look, others need to also be respected, just like how you expect us to respect you as well." And they slowly but surely decided to say, "Look, I'm not interested in this place anymore. You guys are not allowing me to pray. We're not going to change our deen, Habibi, because of you, Kevin. May Allah bless you and protect you." I didn't know whether to call them he or she, I'll be honest with you. May Allah bless.
Them.
Yeah, yeah, whatever. I don't know. I had a professor who for the longest time kept really becoming angry with me. She was my not dissertation professor for my thesis, my master's, but she was one of the professors that helped me write it. And she goes by, so I'm saying she's probably gonna get mad now. Zer. Zer.
Mm.
And so I felt like a fool having to keep saying, "Zer would like to talk to you, professor, about this reference in my citations, for example." Zer's over Z's over there. So I can't keep up with that.
Yeah.
These pronouns, I really couldn't. What are you? I'm a Z. What's a Z? So look, I just prefer you not to call me a her. I'll respect whatever that is, but I can't play along with this fairy tale. I really can't. There was
It's like a farce.
I can't. I can't.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, in that case, could you call me my pronouns Samahat as-Sayyid? And they dealt with it. It's like Samahat is over there. As-Sayyid will be coming soon. And so it's like we're just playing games at this point. You're a doctor. You're a professor on a graduate level. Yeah, akhi.
It's
Or
just
ukhti, sorry.
it's just semantics and
It's
these
just
word
it's
games.
like could you call me that? I'll call you whatever, but I'm not going to play along with the foolishness and the child. It's a childish thing. Yeah, but I don't recognize. Okay, I won't force my view on you, but don't force your view on me. Don't force your view on me. Just respect doctor. So that's how we settled it. Doctor Flan, Flane, or whatever. So that's called tolerance and that's called navigating. So yeah, this issue happened. We tolerated in so much as we felt others were not being affected or hurt, and they as well. But they can't compel us, nor can we compel them. And so
Can you give nasiha though? So say brother walks in and
there's
I
a way
see
to
him.
do
He's
so.
acting a bit fruity.
Yeah, fruity,
So he's acting a bit feminine. Let's say.
fruity. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's called I think that's amr bil ma'ruf, and that's nahi anil munkar, and that's part of our furu' din. You have to do that, but there's a way to do it. Now, Allah says in the Holy Quran that um ادعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي
أحسن.
أحسن. So call upon the way of your Lord with wisdom and the smart thing to say, and debate them with that which is better. And so the better thing to do instead of attack and argue and get out of here, you fruity,
Twink.
whatever, astaghfirullah. I don't want these to be interpreted as pejoratives. It's whatever. It's just to be like, hey, let's discuss. Do you understand that in Islam Allah has made this impermissible or no? Or do you defy this? There's a world today where at one point people would say, look, this is my feeling, therefore I can't be Muslim at the same time. And there's now a world that's saying, I'm gonna be this and I'm gonna be Muslim, and Islam is not going to be a problem for this. It's like trying to reinterpret Islam.
They say, oh, well, Allah is all forgiving, so that He must forgive me for this.
In that case, Allah will forgive you if you want the forgiveness of Allah. You can't say, whether you like it or not, you'll forgive me. Allah will forgive you if you genuinely seek forgiveness. But in this context, there's a new phenomenon, or people are saying, no, Islam's going to accept me, whether Islam likes it or not. Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
And Islam, not Muslims. Islam. Muslims will accept you. I don't know if Islam.
There's these new modern masajids.
Have you heard about the gay?
The woman leads them.
Have you heard about the gay imam? The gay priest, the gay imam?
I did hear about that. I saw. Was that in South Africa?
Yeah. The gay
I
imam.
think it was in South Africa.
Listen, such a person, they could be really good people. They could really just want goodness. I think he was killed, by the way. In this context, we as Muslims have to advise and not take things into our own hands. If people are confused, if they have gender dysphoria, if they've misinterpreted the Quran, it's a matter of knowledge. Then I think in that case, the best solution that you were taught one way is to be taught another way. If you really think your argument is correct, فَهَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ. Bring your evidences, let's discuss. If it's just a matter of discussion, you can't go and take things into your own hand. And you can't come and say this is the only narrative without looking at alternatives. If you've reached a conclusion and where you say I have yaqeen, then let's debate that. You believe that maybe Qawm Lut wasn't all about homosexuality. It was about rape, for example. It was about imposing upon others. Okay, we can debate that. They say that was the reason why Allah punished that people. It wasn't about the feelings. Then why does Nabi Allah Lut say هؤلاء بناتي أطهر لكم? Why are is he offering his daughters or a better alternative? Is he saying come and impose yourself on them? No. He's saying that look, instead of this act, how about I even tell you my daughters are potential prospects for you men? Don't stay with men. So how would you interpret that? Let's have this discussion. It's a healthy discussion to have. Answer this. Maybe I'm lost. Maybe I'm the Muslim that's just confused. Maybe all of us have, but I want to hear your side. You didn't even give time. You didn't give room. And some Muslims are taking this in their own hands and they're not even giving room. So that's the best way to do it, the Quranic way. Call upon the way of your Lord with wisdom. And there appears to be a lack of wisdom these days, unfortunately.
I think I think it's also incredibly important that we don't leave the issue unchecked. And you know this. uh, as well, that we can't be silent on these issues. We've seen what happens when there
Yeah,
are people involved in the community or in
yeah,
Ziara groups or whatnot that
absolutely. Take
have
advantage of
these. They
others.
take advantage of others and they
Yeah,
have these proclivities.
yeah.
Yet our communities, oh, it's taboo. We can't talk
Oh,
about
you
it.
have to talk about it.
You
At
have
the
to
end of the day,
talk
if
about it.
it's not, if it's one day it's that kid, the other day it's your kid. You have to talk about
Yeah.
this. It's called nahi an al munkar for what reason? يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا وقودها الناس والحجارة. Oh, you who believe, protect yourselves and your family from the flames of which encompass people and fire. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا, akin to another ayah that states كونوا شهداء ولو على أنفسكم. You know, be those who are acting upon justice, even if it's upon yourselves. The ayah escapes me right now, but essentially it is to say that even if it's against you and it's not in your interest, you have to take the position that is most just. وَلَوْ عَلَى أَنفُسِكُمْ, even if it's upon your own self. So in any case, justice needs to prevail, and you can't hide justice because things are taboo, things are not comfortable. It's discomfort, discomfort, discomfort until it's oppression. Prevent the oppression by entertaining some discomfort. It's worth it on a long scale for miles. It's disproportionately more worth it that you become more discomforted and more uncomfortable to
Addressing these
avoid
topics.
injustice, oppression, and evil.
Yeah.
So these are things that have to be discussed. They're more prevalent with one community than another. That's fine. We have to call it out. At the end of the day, we're all Team Shia, we're all Team Islam, and bigger than Team Shia is Team Insan.
Yeah.
I don't have to be Muslim to sympathize with the fact that there are a bunch of non-Muslims getting hurt or offended or marginalized. I just see that on a
Just have to
human
be a
level,
decent,
my Imam
decent
said
person.
people are two brothers in religion or equals in humanity. There's my Baba. If there are dogs that are being abused, I have to stand up. What the heck is going on in this world today? Let alone your Palestinian brothers and sisters, let alone your Lebanese brothers and sisters, let alone what's going on in your next door neighborhood, in your next
Ahsantum.
door, for example, country. You have to be someone that has a voice, and you can stay complacent, and you can, for example, do nothing. Or at the end of the day, you change oppression with your hands. And if you can't change oppression with your hands, change it with your tongues. And then now with your tongue, change it with your dua, and never undermine the power of dua.
Ahsantum. We make dua to keep us, inshallah, firm
Protected and
on the
safe.
path of wilaya, as well as to protect our youth and children,
Yeah.
the young boys and girls, inshallah, to grow up as leaders and uh, figureheads of the community, inshallah.
Inshallah,
Do you have
inshallah.
any
Yani
final remarks to
these
say?
times are confusing and these times are disorientating, but we're trying our best. And I think we should have a heart that is understanding. That our youth are many times going through phases. So don't shun them. What if one day they repent? What if one day they see new? What was taught can be untaught, but you don't make sure you don't close the door of the
Ahsantum.
of the way of Allah, because that's Allah's door. That's not my right to close it. It's His. And apply the policy of the Ahlul Bayt. The Ahlul Bayt say, listen, if you want any help, just come to my door. And they gave food to even the asir. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ
Yeah,
مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا
وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا.
وَأَسِيرًا. And
Ahsantum.
they fed for the love they have of God to the destitute, to
The
the
orphans.
captive, to the orphan. So the captive is someone that's a captive. Okay, that's a person that may not have had proclivities towards Islam, but they say, I don't care if you came from a background that really wasn't in line with our way of life. If you're in need, I will help you. I think the asir part can be highlighted and applied on a wide range of things. So this is someone from a background that may not come from a world that was in line with Islam. That's why he's a
Ahsantum.
captive today. But Ahlul Bayt, if you knock on their door, they'll still give you. And we need to be more like them. If more people were like Ahlul Bayt, if more people were followers of Ahlul Bayt, we would wipe out all of these confusions, all of these psychosocial norms that cause hegemony, hedonism, degeneracy, and backwardness. If more people were followers of Ahlul Bayt, that's where behind the minbar
Got it
comes
right.
and
Ahsantum.
inshallah facilitates programs and education and efforts
Inshallah.
that can provide some light in a world riddled with so much darkness.
Ahsantum. Sayyidina. طيب الله ينفعكم.
Wa
Thank you for
anfasakum,
your
inshallah. My honor. Thank you
beautiful
for having me
words.
back.
It was an honor to have you. Inshallah, this is just Another of many times.
One of many, Habibi.
One of many, inshallah, where you honor us and bless us with your knowledge.
Thank you
Just
so much.
so much to unpack.
Thank you so
Inshallah.
much. We
Thank
learn
you
from
so
you.
much, Samahat Sayyid Mohammed Hassan Alsheraa. It's been a delight to have you on again. And he got the name right this time, Behind the Minbar, which was, very important.
You guys didn't let me forget that.
No, we made sure to maximize the
Ahsantum.
pressure.
Ahsantum. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much, Sayyid. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.